Hey, it is your buddy, Peace and Harmony with you here today. Much love going out to all the beautiful empowered harmonizers. And we're zooming in and focusing in a little bit more in depth on a great viewer question, which is how do you discover your core emotional needs? Basically, when a viewer asks me this, it's really telling me you need to rewrite your story. Believe it or not, in the subconscious mind, basically that which houses your beliefs. It houses what you believe you can accomplish, how you will be treated, how you feel you want to take care of yourself, how you interact with life, how you sort of pursue your moment to moment is really your self-belief. And that is the location where you really need to start living from in order to really understand your core emotional needs, especially if they've been suppressed or denied because you're living your life through someone else's eyes, or you are basically just going along with the flow and you haven't really taken time to look at and adjust and ask yourself the right questions. And you can't live only to satisfy others' needs. That becomes a real problematic situation if you're so separated from and you're not in tune with really who you are, what you're about, what is beneficial and basically emotionally nutritive for you, what's giving you the energy, where you want to be. So people learn to overextend themselves, to be overreactive or underreactive. There's this out of balance situation where you're finding yourself feeling kind of lost or feeling like you're not really in that wow, just your mind is blown with happiness. Instead, you're finding a false sense of security, a false group or community that you're going with. You're going with the wrong crowd, or really you're just feeling like you're not really on a place of self-discovery. And self-discovery is where it's really all about. And oftentimes that journey has to begin independently or alone. Most people will find themselves bouncing from relationship to relationship even when they're wounded. They think this is going to take me off of that last relationship hurt. Especially now with Tinder. People find themselves accessing a lot of these relationship websites, Match.com, the Tinder app. It's so easy to just use that as a tool to keep the same wound going. And you never really develop or understand your core emotional needs because you're always putting it outside of yourself. You're always looking for a fix from another person or something of that nature, which doesn't really help to build you up inside. So your core emotional needs are really discovered when you set about on a journey and say, I am going to set aside a period of time, 2 to 3 hours, 1 to 2 hours every week for my recovery date. I'm specifically going to put everything aside, all my day-to-day trappings, and I'm going to go and I'm going to take my completely healed, recovered, and empowered self in my finest awareness. I'm going to take myself out and I'm going to feed that whole recovered part of myself that is not wounded. It's the real me, the real deal, what I'm really about. It can even be as simple as taking a walk in nature, taking your shoes off and earthing, allowing the negative ions to be released and recycled into Mother Earth. It can be an exploratory journey where you then or go out to a beautiful church and you just go and look at the paintings, or you go to an art gallery and you take out your inner healed self. You go to a fabric shop, you go to a rug store, you go to a local five and dime, and you just really slow it all down and you begin to fill that inside space, that inner well. And you then make note of things that really catch your eye, what is of interest. No matter how small, no matter how idiosyncratic, it's going to help open up. It's going to help bring to surface, like a can of worms, what you're really interested in. Are you interested in religion, other languages, other cultures, building? Are you interested in nature? These are very therapeutic activities. Perhaps it can be a walk to a local pet store. You might fall in love with the pets. You might fall in love with the people. You might go to a petting farm or an equestrian center and ride horseback, or just pet the horses, talk to the trainers. Begin to indulge your inner sanctum. Really, going to a beautiful garden that's set aside, maybe it's an hour or two away, and you find yourself driving, taking your healed self out on a recovery date and going to this new forest preserve or this new garden that you've heard things about. Or it can even be taking yourself out for a night or an afternoon of music and being able to indulge that which you've never done before and begin to just sway to the music and then do something feel good. This will all help to build new memories and a new reservoir and a new I am and a new I can. And you deserve to live in a state of awe, but you have to slow it down. You have to stop the fist fighting within. You have to stop the fist fighting without. You have to just be for a moment. Stop the roles. Stop being the mother. Stop being the wife. Stop being the husband. Stop being the victim. Stop being all the labels. You need to remove all labels from yourself to kind of de-roll yourself. I mean, it is an actual state of being where you just come into sort of a pure consciousness state. I want your recovery dates almost to be like a state of altered consciousness, meaning the slate is totally clear. You don't have any marrings on your tabula rasa, your clean slate. You are like a clear, clean slate. And it might be difficult for a lot of people to do this, especially depending on where you're at, but it is a very, very, very beneficial and nutritive thing to do this. It is a consciousness state. It's where you're walking out in your strength. You're walking out in your hero stance. You're walking out in your I am. You're boiling it down to get very simple because you need to really get back to the basics of who you are to discover your emotional needs, not the inauthentic, fake defense mechanisms, perhaps, which have caused you a lot of time and grief, that has caused you really to go on what I call negative orderly direction, thinking, behaving, choosing, or relationships. And you can correct those. It is all about a state of inner correction and inner honesty. It is really literally like hitting the delete button. Now, there's so much technology out there. There is too much technology. It really can hit you from all angles, and it can be difficult to get away from, and it can be overwhelming. So when we come into a state of your healing date, your recovery date, I want it to be a state of really like an altered state where you're taking out this completely healed part of you. You might even just take yourself out for coffee. I want it to be something really like you kind of get ready for, and then when the clock strikes 3, boom, you're in that healed state for as long as you can handle, 3 to 5, 4 to 6, 5 to 7, 1 to 3. Make sure you're maintaining that tabula rasa, that clear healed state. You might take yourself out for ice cream. You might take yourself out to a movie. You might take yourself out for an excursion into painting. Maybe it might even be like a bicycle ride. It could just be something where you're getting into that state of being, and then you can come back to your everyday, the mundane, but I want you to repeat this again and again and again and put it in something like an appointment book so you can begin to discover these. And then you can also ask open-ended questions. If others' judgment on me weren't so harsh, I would really love and be fascinated by. And then write out 1 through 10. When you ask yourself these questions, you'd be surprised how quickly your inner self can answer. If others, if these relationships were not weighing so heavily on me, what would really lighten my mood is. And then write 1 through 20. And you will come up with a whole slew of ideas I would love to buy flowers. I would like to throw out this junk drawer. I would really love to just sit and be. I would love to meditate. I would love to do yoga. I would love to light some candles. I would love to have sage burning. I would love to have some scented candles. I would love to have an incense burner or an essential oil diffuser. I would just love to clear my environment by. And one thing that I'm truly missing in my life and I really need and have been putting off is one important aspect of the recovery journal also as we kind of get into these open-ended questions, because your recovery journal is like a masterpiece in the making. It's going to take a lot of pages. It's going to take a lot of strokes. It's going to take a lot of colors. It's going to take some turpentine and some, Damar varnish. It's going to take some rubbing with the cloth. It's going to take some looking at and pondering and considering when you do this. This is the exciting work. This is the good stuff. And one important aspect on the book that I'm writing, and I'm getting all these tools in one place so you can be able to flip through it and go to it, but I love doing the videos and kind of going into the sections as well, is what I have been procrastinating on. One thing that I am really missing in my life and I've been procrastinating on is, and be brutally honest with yourself. You don't have to, put false pretenses and up with yourself. You can be honest and comfortable with yourself. That is the privacy of these videos, is to help open up the pages really of your soul, your essence that have been underneath there. When you ask the right questions, though, in the format that we're doing, you would be surprised at all the answers that begin to flow out once that inner censor is removed. That, that you are stupid, you shouldn't be fascinated by this. You should not be interested, being interested in art is for rich people only. Being interested in art is for fruities, whatever the sort of limiting belief that's holding you back, I want you to also write down what I've been procrastinating on. Let's title the page again. One thing that is I've really been putting off, and one thing I'm really missing in my life is, and you can just write 1 through 20. Write 1 through 20 down and then write what it is. One thing I've been really putting off and I'm missing in my life is, you can do this, time to chill, time to relax, time to clean, time to go see music, time to become part of a church, time to do some gardening, time for some studying, reading, studying about recipes. One thing I've been really procrastinating and putting off that's really holding me back is, and then take a look at that. Just ponder it like you'd be looking at a piece of art and, kind of smudging it out. If you've ever done a drawing and you use different tools to do some blending, if you kind of then look at it, give yourself a chance to look at your list in a state of peaceful gratitude and humility. You have to, in order to change and find your core needs, you need to come down to a state of humility, a state of grace, a state of decompression. You'll find that there's a lot of junk that you need to delete to get to that core happiness. In other words, all this stuff has been like in the margins, sort of keeping you and your inner voice and your living in tune with these out of your awareness. So some people call it a state of denial. But eventually it leads to self-disgust, self-loathing, self-sabotage. It's because you're not just allowing yourself to receive and to be. And it's because oftentimes our mind is habituated to over-adjusting or overcompensating and trying to keep perhaps the abusive situation still kind of, running through our minds. So you want to stop that ruminating, that sort of intrusive thoughts, especially after one has been in a relationship with someone who is psychopathic, someone who has really sort of in a pre-calculated manner used a tremendous amount of lying, a lot of sort of deception, a lot of contorting and distorting of meaning, and hyper arousal, and is really sort of capitalized on your vulnerability, and has now, in really sort of, I call it just unhuman ways, I mean, more so than your typical human, really sort of devastated you emotionally, psychologically, spiritually. These sort of forces, these sort of entities, they might look like a human, but deep, there's the inner fabric of them is not really, there's no heart there. They don't have any empathy. It's very, very cold, calculated. It's an ugly place, but outside they might be extremely gorgeous, but inside there's something very ugly. And it's to really come to a place where you've removed all of that from your aura, from your being, and it's really getting it out. That's, it is getting it out of, purely. And a lot of people are very, very terrified when they're coming through. They don't know if they're ever going to return to normalcy again. They don't know if they're ever going to get out of this fearful state where it's just like constant, they're feeling unsure of themselves. They can't really connect to their usual values. They're completely disconnected, incongruent to really their good life, being happy, not being paranoid. That is, oftentimes the result of being in these very traumatizing relationships. Literally, it's a fear for life sort of state that oftentimes is a result of these what originally began as romantic relationships. That's how they sort of pull you under. It is like an undertow, and then the undertow continues after you've been with these people. So it's getting out of that magnetic pull or that undertow that pulls you emotionally down. Is to no longer be in that etheric field, that energy field. Your space is totally clear. You are clear, completely devoid of that abuse. It's no longer interfering with your feeling process, your experiential process. You've released and let them go. It takes a humility and coming to be, coming to center. So in that center is yours. You must protect that. You must not be ashamed of it. It is yours. And that is where the fruit of life is. That's where the fruit of your labor comes from. It's what says, you know what, I'm going to go and get myself a bunch of flowers, or I'm going to go and get myself the tools I've always wanted to fix this and this. I'm now going to go ahead. So once you see what you've been procrastinating on, you'll see how you've created a mountain that is, overshadowing or eclipsing the good life, where you're living free and you're not fearful, things don't bother you, you're not triggered. It is coming to terms and then facing that. And so you have to look at the fears, but what we're breaking it down is, what's really missing in my life and what I've been really procrastinating about is. And then, but making that decision from a core center, not making decisions from a fear state, making decisions from a state of peace, a state of harmony, a state of allowing, and making decisions from that state of being cohesive and coherent, not out of a reactive state, but more of a responding and responsible state. So your life is going to feel different. You are going to feel different, and that is the goal, that is the result. Once you kind of come into this mindfulness place and really realizing how you become reactive and how the jitters, the flailing and finching of your body when you're around somebody who is abusive, that, you're no longer overriding that fear state, which causes you to be disconnected from your core emotional needs. You're no longer saying, I'm crazy for feeling this way, and then overriding yourself. In other words, overriding your better judgment, because when you're in a fight or flight state, all you do is live in the fear. And so the healing is about not living in the fear. It's, the fear does not have a place. The good life is in a state of peace. So it's making your decisions and then getting into positive, what I call pod thinking. You feel almost like you're in a cuddle, secure pod, like you're as snug as a bug in a pea pod, so to speak, with yourself, with your life. You're unaffected. You're unimpressed. You're that all that other stuff is neutralized. And then once you come into that space where you're open, your legs aren't crossed, your arms aren't crossed, you aren't like this. You aren't always, armoring up, trying to defend yourself. If you find yourself in that state, you unequivocally can trust your body signals, and it's telling you to get away. So you just smoothly, calmly, like an expert, you know to disengage from that situation and detach immediately, and just say, I need to go by, or I'm doing this, and learn to honor and trust those inner signals, and then following up with your interests, the things that truly make you happy. What really makes me happy, although others didn't allow me, is to have. And list 1 through 20. Ask yourself these questions, get pen and paper, and then write it down, but list 1 through 20 and allow just the answers to come up. This doesn't feel like me, peace and harmony. I didn't know that I was interested in X, Y, and Z. Well, guess what? You are. It's all in there, but it's been bottled up, pushed down, shoved down, repressed, suppressed. Your inner core needs are there. It's just waiting for you to allow, kind of like, the stream, the creek within, that little hot spring to start bubbling up and bubble forth, and it'll guide you. It'll say, you know what, why don't you go for a swim? And you're like, I don't know if this seems really strange. You might be having these solutions beginning to come. And then this is what you're actually looking for. This is your core needs, and then you're living in sync. That's the good life. It's your buddy, Peace and Harmony, with you here today, hoping that these videos do help. Please share, please subscribe for more great tools, videos, discussion, and support.